Fire departments investigate every fire they respond to in order to determine the origin and cause of the fire. Knowing the cause of the fire helps strengthen fire prevention efforts, as well as provide evidence for fires that may have been intentionally started. In this program, you will see the primary responsibilities of firefighters in fire cause determination, from the first alarm to overhaul. The learning objectives are to define the firefighter's role in fire cause determination, to describe important firefighter observations en route to the fire, to describe the observations firefighters should make upon arrival at the scene, to describe observations during firefighting operations, to present salvage and overhaul responsibilities in fire cause determination, to demonstrate how to secure the fire scene pending an investigation, to describe the legal considerations in fire cause determination, and to demonstrate how to safeguard evidence at the scene. The firefighter's principal duties in the determination of fire origin and cause are to observe and report significant information. The firefighter must also be able to recognize possible causes of a fire and protect evidence from unnecessary disturbance until the fire investigator arrives on the scene. The fire investigation may be a brief, simple process that determines the fire cause was accidental, or it may become a complex criminal investigation involving law enforcement and fire officials at the local, state, provincial, or federal level. Firefighters must be aware of the guidelines and regulations in their areas for contacting law enforcement agencies and calling in fire investigators. Firefighters play an important role in the investigation of arson fires because they are the first on the scene and have the opportunity to observe a fire's behavior and scene conditions in their undisturbed state. The evidence of fire cause can be easily disturbed or destroyed by the fire or in fire suppression operations. So firefighters must make every effort to identify the indicators of fire cause and origin and report them as accurately as possible to fire investigators. Your observations en route to the fire can be important to the fire investigation. When the alarm comes in, note the time of day. For example, if it is 3 a.m., it is reasonable to expect the occupants of a dwelling to be in night clothes rather than day clothes. Or, if the fire is in an office or industrial building, it is noteworthy if the owner of the building is at the scene before fire personnel. Also note weather and natural hazards at the time of the alarm. One would not expect to find open windows in especially cold weather, or the furnace running during a heat wave. In heavy snow, ice, or fog, be especially mindful of suspicious circumstances. Arsonists often set fires during inclement weather because the fire department's response time is longer. At the vicinity of the fire scene, look for any man-made barriers that could indicate someone trying to delay firefighting efforts. Also notice if anyone is leaving the scene. If cars are leaving, note the color, make, condition, and license plate if possible. Have you seen the vehicle in the vicinity of previous fire scenes? If people are leaving the scene on foot, notice their clothing, physical appearance, and anything unusual about them.
Firecom Battalion 31's on scene. We have a 2-story wood frame structure, heavy smoke. Engine 31 come direct in. Engine 32, you'll be water supply. All their units stand by.
Upon arrival on scene, note the time of arrival and the location and extent of the fire. This helps determine the point of origin. If the fire is burning in apparently separate locations or in an unusual location, note it as something that should be checked out. Notice the color of the smoke and the flame. The different colors of smoke may give some indication of what is burning. If the smoke or flame color is consistent with a fuel not normally found in such a structure, it may be cause for suspicion. Make a note of the wind direction and velocity. These may have a great effect on the path of the fire spread. At the fire scene, make note of any familiar faces in the crowd. Arsonists often stay to admire their work. Upon approach to the building, notice any signs of forcible entry or discarded burglary tools. These could be indicators that the fire was set to conceal another crime. Check to see if doors and windows are locked or unlocked. And notice if draperies or blankets and other coverings were used over windows and doors to delay discovery of the fire. Look around for discarded containers that may have held flammable liquids. While life safety and fire suppression are the priorities as you begin firefighting operations, it's important to make mental notes of unusual conditions. Notice if furniture has been moved to doorways or halls so that it hinders firefighting. Check for structural alterations, such as opening up the drywall to expose wood framing or beams. Also be careful of holes cut in the floor to spread the fire and injure firefighters. Firefighters responsible for shutting off power to the building should note whether circuit breakers were on or off when they arrived. During firefighting, be aware of any abnormal fire behavior when water is applied. Flammable liquids used as accelerants are more difficult to extinguish than ordinary combustibles. Notice the heat intensity of the fire and the rate of fire spread. High heat intensity and fast spreading could indicate flammable liquids. Inside the structure, look for incendiary devices. Incendiary devices are items that are not normally found in that location used to start an intentionally set fire, such as timers, containers, or electrical equipment. Also be on the lookout for trailers. A trailer is a combustible material used to spread fire, such as a rolled rag, newspaper, or flammable liquid. Note the location of these items and make an effort not to disturb them while extinguishing the fire. Notice burn patterns showing areas of uneven burning, local heavy charring, or charring in unusual places. This could indicate an accelerant was used or gas lines were intentionally disconnected. When the smoke clears, firefighters and investigators can get a better look at the scene and continue to look for the indicators we've just shown. Keep in mind that evidence can be easily destroyed in the attempt to restore the building to the best condition possible. If possible, overhaul should be delayed until the fire investigator has examined the fire scene. In any fire situation where there is reason to question the origin of the fire, be especially careful not to move debris or clean up the structure until the fire investigator has gathered the required evidence. After the fire is extinguished, firefighters should note if alarm systems and sprinkler systems were inoperable or tampered with. During early overhaul, look for an absence or shortage of personal possessions, such as clothing, furnishings, or other usual belongings in a structure of this type. Check to see if major appliances were unplugged and determine why they were in this condition. Notice if documents, such as insurance papers, inventory lists, or other legal documents, were taken from the premises prior to the fire. Does the owner too easily produce insurance papers, inventory lists, or deeds that normally would be kept in a secure location? On the other hand, in a business location, an open file drawer could indicate an attempt to destroy records or documents. Report your observations about any unusual conditions concerning the fire as soon as possible to your supervisor or to the fire investigator. Whenever you are involved in a fire of suspicious origin, you should write down all of the important circumstances that you observed at the scene. In the event of a criminal investigation and trial, you may be asked to remember specific details years after the fire occurred. A very important first step to any successful fire cause determination is to properly secure the scene pending the fire investigation. This security starts with your own conduct at the scene. Although you should do as much as you can to notice and preserve evidence, you should keep all of this information strictly within the chain of command. Refrain from expressing your personal opinions about the cause of the fire to anyone, even to other firefighters. Careless, premature, or unauthorized remarks can be overheard by civilians or the media and can result in grave consequences to both you and your department. An appropriate response to questions from bystanders or the media about the fire cause is simply, "The fire is under investigation." Also, although you may be assigned to question people at the scene, do not attempt to cross-examine a potential arson suspect. That is the job of the fire investigator or law enforcement agency. If a fire investigator is not immediately available, you will have to guard the premises and keep it under the control of the fire department until all evidence can be collected. In most states, the fire department has the authority to refuse access to any building during firefighting and for a reasonable period of time after fire suppression is complete. There are several ways to secure the scene using only a few personnel. If the area is fenced, lock the gates and have one person stand at each gate. If the area is not fenced, cordon it off. Law enforcement should be stationed to protect the cordoned area. At large occupancies, a full-time private security force is often employed to keep everyone out. In extreme cases, you may need to cover all doors and windows with plywood to completely close off access to the building. No one, including the property owner or occupant, should be allowed to enter the premises without the fire investigator's permission. Anyone allowed to go inside should be accompanied by an authorized individual. A written record should be kept of every entry into the fire scene, noting the name of the person, times of entry and departure, and a description of anything taken from the scene. The legal considerations of fire cause determination are important and substantial. The United States Supreme Court has ruled on the issue, and many local jurisdictions also have laws and procedures that must be followed. In the U.S., the Supreme Court has held that firefighters may remain on the scene as long as necessary to do their job, but once they leave, they will need a search warrant to re-enter the premises. This means that all evidence gathering and scene investigation must be done while firefighters are on the scene. After the last firefighter leaves, you cannot go back without a search warrant. In cases of possible arson, it may be necessary to leave at least one firefighter at the scene until all investigative work is completely finished. Throughout the time of the investigation, all evidence must be fully protected, and rules of access must be strictly enforced. If the investigation appears to be lacking security or due process, it could result in a case that is impossible to prosecute or an overturned conviction. Every department should have a well-defined standard operating procedure for handling fire cause determination investigations, and it should address all legal opinions that affect the jurisdiction of the department. Identifying and safeguarding evidence of fire cause and origin is an important responsibility of firefighters at the scene. There are two primary methods of protecting and preserving evidence. First, guard the evidence where it is found, keeping it untouched and undisturbed to preserve the chain of custody. And second, identify and safeguard evidence that cannot be left at the fire scene. All firefighters involved in the fire attack or the overhaul operation should make every effort not to disturb evidence, except as it is necessary to extinguish the fire. Avoid trampling over possible evidence or using excessive water that may destroy important proof. Human footprints can provide significant information. They can be measured to determine the sole print, the length of stride, the position of the feet, and whether the person was walking or running. Footprints can be preserved by placing a box over them until they can be photographed or cast in plaster. Completely or partially burned papers found in a fireplace, stove, or furnace can be protected by immediately closing dampers and other openings. When you have been involved in a fire scene that includes evidence of possible arson, you may be called upon to identify that evidence later.
Trail leading to the house.
It is crucial that you correctly identify and safeguard this evidence and make sure it is secure until it is handed over to the proper authorities. Collection of evidence should be left to fire investigators, who will have the proper containers and documentation for preserving evidence of fire cause and origin. In this program on fire cause determination, you have seen the roles and responsibilities of firefighters in detecting, reporting, and preserving evidence of a fire with suspicious circumstances. We have shown the firefighter's role in fire cause determination, key firefighter observations while en route to the fire, upon arrival at the scene, and while fighting the fire. Salvage and overhaul considerations, how to secure the fire scene pending an investigation, legal considerations, and how to safeguard evidence at the scene. As a firefighter, you are the first link in the chain of evidence that can convict an arsonist or free him to set more dangerous fires. Arson is a serious criminal activity with many financial, psychological, and emotional consequences. It is up to us to be the first line of defense against this criminal element and to do what is necessary to protect the community from the anguish of intentionally set fires.